Hello. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use a custom resource to set the player spawn position and direction without the player being on a singleton. This is something I originally learned from Mr. Taft Creates. This was something done with the Unity game engine, and I'd originally followed that tutorial using my own project, but I switched to Godot, and I wanted to see if this was possible to do using custom resources. With the Unity version, I had learned to do this with an animation tree, and I tried to do that with Godot, but the animation tree kind of behaves a little differently. So in this video, I'll be using Animated Sprite 2D. It might be possible to use animation tree with Godot, but I couldn't get it to work. So just wanted to let you know that ahead of time here. This video will have chapters, so if you want to skip around to get to what you want to see, you can do that. Though I'd encourage you to look at how I have this set up first before doing that, but up to you. I also have the scripts that I'll be showing you today. I have in a public repo on GitHub, and that'll be in the description, along with other links to YouTube tutorials that I followed that helped make this, as well as the assets for this. Anyway, let's before we look at any of that, let's take a look at how we'll set this up and how this will work. So these are the main components we'll be using here. We'll have an EnterExit, which is area 2D. We have a custom resource, of course, and we have a SceneManager and a player. This EnterExit will have our information for the player position and direction for the next scene, and that'll get passed into our custom resource. And then after that is done, we will have the next scene that'll be loaded into our SceneManager. After the new scene is loaded, we'll have a setter method from our custom resource that we'll use to pass into our player script in the player ready function. So that will put our player in the correct position and the correct direction. If you have your player on a singleton, you could still use this to set the player position in the next scene. Or you might find other use cases to use this custom resource. Most of the videos you find online for custom resources are for player stats, but this is just another way you can use it. Let's take a look at our SceneManager. Basically, we have our function that's called SceneChange. We're going to pass in the next scene path, which will be a string, and we'll set a private variable equal to the path that we pass in. We'll check if that path exists, and if it does, we will load that as a packed scene. After we have that packed scene, we'll call getTree.callDeferred, and then the name of our this method here is changing to packed. This is a built-in method in Godot, but when you use the call deferred, you call it that way. And then here's our scene to load. If the scene does not exist, then we'll just do a print debug that the scene does not exist or the path is incorrect. Our SceneManager, if we look in our product settings, is going to be our only global entity in this project. So it's just our SceneManager right here. The player is not auto-loaded. So if we see here, we have our world or game world. This could be called World 2D. We have our inside the convenience store. You see we have another instance of the player. I have another building here, 4-way building. You can see we have area 2D triggers here. And then we have inside the 4-way room with our area 2Ds, EnterExit. The EnterExit scene is just a simple area 2D. I made it narrow like this to avoid getting stuck between rooms. So yeah, let's take a look at the scripts. We looked at the SceneManager. Let's also take a look at the player script so we can see just how it's set up here. You could skip over this part if you want to get straight to the custom resource. Again, these are on chapters. The too long didn't watch. The reason we're looking in here is because we want to look at the names of our animations here, because we're going to manipulate these with our custom resource. So we have this walk left, walk right, walk up, walk down that we're going to take in with our EnterExit script. And we want to change it to one of these idle left, idle right, idle up, or idle down. So that's the too long didn't watch. But if you want to look through this script here, I'll show you that now. Again, I do have this in a public repo on GitHub, so you can also take a look at that there. The first thing we have is our move input, which is a vector 2. And then we have our enum states, idle and walk. Enums are really just index values. So idle, to me and you, this looks like idle and walk. To the computer, to the engine, it looks like 0 and 1. And they don't have any meaning in themselves. We have to give them meaning. And then we'll set the current state to default to idle. After that, we have our movement speed. Some of this is just typical player movement type of script. I've added in a speed multiplier as a constant. That makes it so when we do velocity of the player, we have a smaller number we can manage instead of like a really large number, especially after we pass in delta to our movement method. We'll be using the animated sprite 2D, as I mentioned. And then here we have a reference to our custom resource, which we'll look into more shortly. These are the methods that will set our player position and direction. These methods will access the player spawn resource to set those at the beginning when the script is first loaded in the new scene. We will look at those again. For the physics process, we're going to run these methods, or pass in delta, handle the states, these states up here, idle and walk, and then we'll also have handle the state actions, and then followed by move and slide. For the state transitions, the first method here, we're going to set move input equal to input dot get vector, move left, move right, move up, move down, and then normalize that. Get vector here is the same as two get access methods, so it's kind of a combination of the two. This allows us to get any input and set it to one variable. And then here for the movement, if move input dot absolute value, so if you take the absolute value of whatever input you put in, whether it's -1 or +1, we want to see if that's greater than vector 2.0, and that means we are moving, which means the current state is equal to walk. So if there's no input, if it's not greater than vector 2.0, then our state is idle. Next, we have to define what those mean, what idle and walk means. So we do a match statement here. So states for matching the current state, which again we've already declared up here, the current state. So we want to see what match the current state. So for if states for states.walk, we'll have this variable set up. Walk animation to play will equal animated sprite 2d.animation, which will be equal to our animated sprites that I have set up in this project. So say if the move input.x, so the x vector, is less than 0, and the move input.y is 0, which means we're only going left or only going right without any diagonal movement, then we'll play walk left. Opposite here, if it's move input x is greater than 0, and also y is still not being used, then it'll be walk right. For the next two, if we're only moving up or only moving down, actually we're only checking the y-axis for this one. So if the y-axis is less than 0, then we do walk up. It doesn't take into account x. This means so it will also it'll play walk up even if we're walking diagonally, even if we have the x input pressed along with it, but we're only checking for y. The same thing here. For move input.y greater than 0, then we'll do walk down. So after these if statements, we're going to have an animation to play value, and we're going to play that. We'll also have the velocity equal the move input that we're putting in times the movement speed times delta times our speed multiplier. So that's all for walk. For states idle, I put here if input dot is action just released equals move left. These are values that I have in my project settings. The default values, as you probably know, are going to be like UI underscore left or UI underscore right and so forth. But anyway, if we just released move left in our input, then the animated sprite 2D animation is going to be idle left. If same thing for if it's just released as move right, then we're going to play idle right, and so on and so forth for the rest of the directions, move up and move down. Because the idle animations are only one frame, we don't need to explicitly play an animation like we do with the walk, but we do need to set the velocity. And so we'll do velocity equals velocity.move toward vector2.0 and our movement speed. Main reason, again, I wanted to show you this script is so that we know the names of these animations, because we're going to be accessing those from our custom resource. So let's look at the custom resource, player spawn resource. I guess first of all, to show you how to make a resource, you can start with the scripts first. So if you have a scripts folder, which you probably do if you have a project, you can right click on that and go to create new and go to script, and you can call it something like my custom resource or something. I would use something that has a hint about it that this is for a resource and not just a typical script for a node TD. And the thing you need to change about it is we're not going to inherit node, we're going to inherit resource. So you can type that in. If you start to type it, it will do that. And there you have it. You can just create this, and you now, in your scripts folder, will have your custom resource. What you can do then is open that up, and you can give it a class name. And I'll just call it my resource or something like that. This is just generic. And you can save that. And then you'll have a resource available to you. What you would then do is, I would create a resource folder. You can call it resources or call it my resources or call it custom resources. And then you would right click on that, create new, and then in this case do create resource. And then you can look and you should be able to find my resource, and there it is there. And that will create your resource. This would be a little more meaningful if you actually create some fields here, like let's say we do, let's see, we'll do an export so we can see it. We'll just call it name, make it a type string, and be like that. We'll save it, create a resource, and then there we have it there. We can do create, and then yeah, we can call it, we're not going to actually use this, but give it the name that makes sense to you, that describes what it is. As you can see, I already have my player resource in here, player spawn resource, and you can click on that. if you look in the resources, then you'll have your new resource. If you double click on it, you see we have our name field here, and we can type in John or something like that. So yeah, that'll be the resource, but we're not actually going to use this. This is the resource we're actually going to use, and this is called I named it class name player spawn location resource, but use a name that makes sense to you. Make sure you have that class name so you can find it easily. Extends resource, and then these are the variables we're going to work with here. We're going to have the initial spawn position, which is a vector 2. This will be the location you want to be in the next scene. Okay, so the EnterExit script is going to pass that information into this resource. For the spawn direction, again, we're going to be accessing the animation name, and it's going to be a string. If you use this export enum, you can actually make a drop-down list. So I'll choose down, up, left, right. Notice that these are strings, and then you can put all this on one line, by the way. This doesn't have to be 2 lines. So these are the values that will appear in the drop-down menu, and we'll give the variable name initial player direction, and we'll default it to down. We'll be calling that script in the player scene, and you can see we have our custom resource here, and you can see we have our initial spawn. Let me make that a little wider. Our initial spawn position, and we have our initial player direction. And you do see we have a drop-down menu, and it does default to down. All right, so let me go back to the script again. Okay, so that's so we have this player position for where it's going to be in the room, and then we have our player direction for which direction it's going to face in the next room. After that, we're going to use these getter and setter methods. So the first one, we're going to have get initial player position. This is going to be the player position that we collect from the EnterExit script. So when we hit the doorway of the scene that we're in, we're going to pass in this vector 2. And then we're going to set our variable that we have here in our export variable equal to the position that we pass in from the area 2D. And then we're going to store that, and we're going to pass that into the player script with this setter method, which only returns the value. So you do the getter method first to get it from the area 2D, and then we'll pass that new value into the player script. And then the next part is we're going to get the animation player velocity from the EnterExit script, which is not technically going to be a velocity. I should change that name. Anyway, we're going to pass the direction, which will be one of these, into this method, and then set our initial player direction equal to the direction that we set in. So again, we default it here to down, but it will change depending on what gets passed in. Once we have that value changed in our player script, we're going to call this method to return our new player direction in the new scene. So if we go back to our player method here, our player script, you can see we're calling these methods in the ready method. So set initial player position and the initial player direction. So if you reference where it is, I put them at the bottom of the script here. And we have our set player initial position, and we create a variable equal to this method that is part of the player spawn resource, which we just looked at here. Set initial player position. Okay. And then the next part, this would be easier to look at the EnterExit. I think we should look at that next to understand this, what we're doing here with setting the direction. So let's take a look at the EnterExit script. Again, this is going to be an area 2D. If we look at just the 2D here, Let's see, EnterExit. This is just this. So just the script here. We have an export variable for the scene that we're going to load. This will not go into the custom resource. This is going to go directly to the SceneManager, which we've already looked at. This is going to be a string. We're going to do a file type of TSCN. So it's only going to be that kind. We have here the player spawn position for the next scene. This will enter in manually. Both of these will enter in manually. But for the player direction, you see this is not an export variable. We'll be taking this in dynamically. That makes it so we don't have to think about what direction we want the player to face. That may or may not work for you depending on what you want to do. But most of the time, if you're going to walk through a door going one direction, you're probably going to want to be facing the same direction in the new scene. If that's not the case, then you can do an export enum the same way that I did in the player resource. But here we'll be taking it dynamically. And then again, since we are in the EnterExit, this is the area 2D, we need to reference our player spawn resource, our custom resource. So like both the player scene and the EnterExit will be accessing our player spawn resource. So when our player enters the area 2D, we will trigger this method. This is a signal method here. On body entered, we'll pass in our body. We want to check to make sure if that body is player. And the way you can make this player is if you give your player script a class name. So you see we give it the class name of player. It makes it easier to check that it is player and not just any other node 2D. I have a print statement. I think in the public repo I took these print statements out. I can't remember if I took that one out. So the first thing we'll do is we'll get the player position for our next scene, and we will pass it into our player spawn resource, get initial player position. This is our getter method. This is the string that it's expecting. If we look at our player spawn resource, this is the string we're passing in, get initial player position. So this is what we're passing in. Okay, so that will take care of our position in the next scene. And then to dynamically get the direction correct, what we're going to do is get the current animation at the time we walk through the area 2D. And so we'll do current animation equals the body, which is the body that is passed in, player, dot animated sprite 2D.animation, and see what that's equal to. And because the animation is most likely going to be walk up or walk down, we don't want to be walking in the next scene. Usually you will start the next scene in the idle position. So what we're going to do is check if the current animation begins with walk underscore, then we're going to trim the prefix of walk, so we're only left with the direction of either up, down, left, right. So again, just to review, check again, if we look at our player animation names, we have walk left, walk right, walk up, walk down, in the same format with idle, except idle left, idle right, idle up, and idle down. The reason we have this condition for also idle is because you might actually catch the area 2D in idle, and if you only account for trimming the walk, and then you go in and if it doesn't see a walk in the name of the animation, it's not going to trim idle. So this is a safeguard in case you don't actually walk through and you accidentally land on the area 2D. This means you're only going to end up, no matter what, with our trimmed prefix, which will only be up, down, left, right. So then we set our player next direction equal to the new prefix that we just trimmed off. I put print statements to check that these were working. I don't have these in the public scripts that I put on the repo. And then so the player next direction, which is just going to be up, down, left, right, we will pass into the get last animation player direction. So if we look in get last, that's our getter method right here in our custom resource. This is the string we're passing in. And so this is going to be equal to either up, down, left, right. The last thing we do after we've done that, so we now have our position and we have our direction. Now we can load the next scene. Because the scene to load is a path, that's a string, so just checking as long as it's not empty, then we'll pass this into our SceneManager method, the scene change. So again, and here in our SceneManager, this is the string we're passing in. We could check out further conditions here, like maybe starts with and the file path for our scenes folder, but we're already checking for a file type here, and the SceneManager is also going to check if it exists. So even if we put a bad path through here, it's going to be caught by the SceneManager and then tell us this is not a correct path. So let's review this again with the EnterExit. Again, we have our export variable here for the scene to load. We have the player position, which is a vector 2, where it's going to be in the next scene. And then we're going to dynamically figure out the direction based on the current animation when it goes into the area 2D. Trim the walk or the idle off at the beginning, so we're only left with a direction. And then after we've collected those and passed those into our custom resource, then we'll load the new scene. Okay, and then of course, scene loaded. We go to our player script. We load our two methods here. We already looked at the set player initial position. That was a little easier. But the set initial direction was a little more complicated, but this will make more sense now that we've looked at the EnterExit. So we have our new player direction equal to a string, returning the value of the new string of up, down, left, or right from our player resource set method here. And then we want to add, because we don't have an animation called only up, down, left, right, we're going to add the idle underscore plus the up, down, left, right that we passed through. And then we can set that equal to the animation to play. Again, I have print statements here to make sure that these are working, and so I know where they're coming from. You could do a print debug for that as well. And that's how it works. So something important to point out here is in your EnterExit, you see we do have an export variable for our player spawn resource. So we can go to load, and then you go to your resources and then load your player spawn resource. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to reset anything. But in the EnterExit, in just the actual base scene here, not an instance of it, but just the scene itself that you create. In other words, just this here, no instance of it. You're not going to have any values. There's no player next position here, and there's no, well, the direction we're taking dynamically, so we don't see it here. But we do want to drag in our custom resource, and the custom resource will have our default values. Because we are calling these methods in the player script, right in the ready method, we do need to set a default value for that. So if we look in our game scene, we have our instance of player here. And you see we have value set here. And they're very similar to the transform values that are in here. But these values that you have for your player transform will be overridden by this. So you do want to be mindful of that. You want to have some default value set up because these will be called right away in the ready method. Let's see how this works with our world view here. So and this is our main scene. And there's a player here. You can see I do have the area 2D here, and I have the area 2D here on the side just to check that it works. We have our player here, and as you've already seen, we have the custom resource. This is our default position for our player in the main scene, and we have the default of down. For the EnterExit, this is probably not organized correctly. I mean, I just made this a sprite on here and made it on the layer of the outdoor objects. So it's probably not right, but I mean, this will still give you an idea. I added these on top here. So these are instances of our EnterExit. I gave it a new name, just so it's more specific as to which exit or entrance we're talking about. Since we're outside, we'll call them an entrance. And then we have our main entrance here, and then we have our side entrance here. So in this instance of EnterExit, we do give values for where we want player to be in the next scene. So you can see here I'm loading inside 7-Eleven. This is the position that I want them to be when they walk inside the store from this door. And then here's our reference to the player. We need to have the player spawn resource here to collect those values. So we have that for there. That means that in our inside 7-Eleven, this is where it's going to spawn, and it's going to be facing up. We'll take that dynamically. Going back to the other door here, so this side door over here, we have different values. So if we walk through this right door, these are going to be the position we want to be when we're inside the 7-Eleven, the direction will be taken dynamically, and then here we have our reference to our player spawn resource. From inside the 7-Eleven, we also have area 2D triggers. In this case, we have our exit 7-Eleven and then exit side. So we have our main exit here. So if we look at our inspector here, we have this scene that we're going to load. It means we're going to go back outside into our main scene, which I called game. So that's what we'll load there. This is the position we want to be when we walk outside this door here at the bottom. And then there's the reference to our player spawn resource. If we look at the other door, which is over here, you see we have different values here. So let's make sure that is different. Yeah, different values. So when we walk outside this right door, this will be our scene. We're going to be out in the main game scene again. This will be our position, and again a reference to our player spawn resource. So let's check and see how this works. Okay, so there we are in our main scene here. When I walk up, I should be facing up, and I am, and I'm in the correct space of this room. If I walk out, I want to be right here, and I am. If I come into the side, then I'll be facing to the left over here, and if I come back out, I'll be facing to the right. Just to show you that it is working, taking it dynamically, you can actually hit this diagonally. If I come through this way, you see I'm facing up in the next scene. And everything's fine. If I come through here and walk out here, I'll be in the correct place. So that's working. That's good. Okay. Next, you'll see I do have another room here with our 4 entrances and exits. For this one, I made its own scene just to make it simpler. And so I made an instance of this scene in our game, called it 4-way building here. And then we also have the 4-way room from inside. And you see we have our same area 2Ds. Now these are just instances of our EnterExit. And they each have, you can give them unique names once you have an instance of them inside. So if we look at our 4-way building here, again, in the base scene, we don't put in any values here because we're going to have the instance of it in our game scene. But if we look at our game, we have our four-way building. And you can see we can edit the children because if we right-click on the four-way building, we have editable children checked. That means we can edit this instance of our four-way building. So if you see here, we have our instance of the next player position. In fact, I've only set it for the south entrance, so you can see here we do have a position that we want to be in when we walk through the south entrance. And again, our player spawn location. Okay, so what I'll show you how to do is how to set these other doors up. The four-way room inside, same thing. I only have the south entrance with values here, but the other ones I do not. So we're going to set those up. So let's take a look at our, oops, not this. Again, don't touch the base scene. Just you're only messing with the instances of it, unless it's an actual level scene. So let's take a look at our north entrance. When we load this here, we see the blank field. We're going to come in from this side. We know the scene we want to enter here is going to be inside the four-way room. So we look at our scenes, and we have four-way room. That's what we want to load. So that takes care of that. The position we want to be in, well, let's take a look. Four-way room. Okay, there we go. So we're using the north entrance here. We know the scene we're going to want to load is going to be back into our game scene. So there we have it there. So we'll load that. Well, that takes care of that. But we want, sorry, we're supposed to look at the position here next. But that's taken care of. So we can actually move our player around here and see where we'd want to have him. And just look at that. So probably around here. And if we look at his position here, it's 8, -14. So back into our north entrance here, I already forgot what I said. I think it's 8 and -14. And that takes care of that. Let's make sure our inside the four-way room will actually bring us back out to where we want. So the north entrance. We get the right scene. Let's see where we'd want to be dumped out. So north entrance, we can look at our player, move him around, and kind of give an idea of where he'd want to be. It doesn't matter which direction he's facing because you know it's going to be done for us. You want to look at your transform, 384, 259. So 384 and 259, I think is what I said. So now we have our next scene that we're going to load, the player spawn position that we're going to have, and again the direction will be taken dynamically, so we can save that. And actually we can test that. We'll save that as well. And make sure we're on game. Let's take a look at that. So we're going to be out here. Let's walk through. And yeah, it looks good. Walk back out, and we're good. So that's working. All right. Let's do the other doors now. Let me make this a little, so you can see that again. South entrance we already did. I already did before this video. We'll do the east entrance next. So we want to see the scene we're going to load is, again, of course, the inside the room. So the four-way room is the scene we'll load. The position, we'll take a look inside the room. And again, we can move our player around. And say maybe about here looks good. So that is 26 and 7. So over here on our east exit, do 26 and 7, I believe is what I said. I want to double check. I'm never confident on that. Yeah, 26 and 7. Okay, and while we're in here, we might as well look at where the east entrance is. Should be. And that'll be -8 and 7. So that's the west entrance. We'll do -8. and 7. And of course, the scene we want to load when we're out here is going to be inside our 4-way room. Okay, so that's set up. We can save that. And inside our 4-way room, we can save that change. Let's see, the west exit, we want to change those. Scene to load, of course, will be a game. Let's see, where's that? There we go. And then for the position, we can go to our game scene and move our player to where we want here, where we think he should come out. Probably around here. So this is 349 and 305. So 349 and 305, I think is what it is. 349, 305. Okay, that works. And we have our scene. So that should do it. Let's check it out. Let me save it here as well. So now we should be able to walk in through any of these doors, load the correct scene, and be in the correct spot at each scene when we walk through. So let's try the north entrance. There we go. Let's try to walk out. There we go. Let's try to walk into the side. There we go. That works. Uh-oh. I think we missed one here. Let's come back to that. Since we're inside, let's see if we can actually do it from inside as well. So out the south entrance. Okay, that works. Go out the west. That works. And then, so we're just missing this one. So that is our east entrance. Let's take a look at that. So we'll look at our 4-way room in here and look at our east entrance. And yeah, I got nothing there. I forgot to load anything. So at least we could have loaded this scene even if we were in the wrong spot. But let's do that. We're going to be back in our game scene. And then for the player position, let's go back out to game and move our player, around over here. Should be right. So you can look at your transform. 422, 306. And that should fix it. Okay, let's try again. Make sure we're on game here. And let's do it again. Now it should work. Okay, so let's walk in from the top. Let's walk out from the side. Okay, that works good. A little uneven. Walks in from the bottom, from the side. Yeah, looks like we're good. And let's see if we can come out to the sides, come back in. Oops. Make sure we loaded those from the outside as well. Can you hear my Mac struggling here? Oops. There we go. Clearly, I'm not an expert of tile mapping, but anyway, this does work. We got everything to work. These doors up here still work. Shouldn't be any problem there. Good. I guess for good measure, go up here as well, come out, make sure we're good. Okay, yeah, so that works. So there you have it. Hopefully the video was helpful for you. If you have any questions or comments or anything you didn't understand, please let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, you found it helpful, put a like. For subscribe, I don't know if I'll be making many videos. This took more work than even I anticipated. Do check out the description. As I said, I do have links to some videos that I found helpful for me. And I do have the link to these sprite sheets. So yeah, happy coding and happy learning, and hope you guys are enjoying this engine as much as I am.